Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to review the 2018 wrestling comedy movie Walk Like a Panther. A movie that has a multitude of British stars in it, British actors, including, and I'm going to go through a few here, Stephen Graham, Jason Fleming, Julian Sands, Jill Halfpenny, Robbie G, Stephen Tonkinson, Sue Johnson, Judith Alexander. It's got Lena Headey in it from Game of Thrones. Oh, so many. Christopher Fairbank. There's a whole multitude of recognisable faces from British films and TV in this film, and this is a British comedy, and it focuses on a family and a community that all congregate at this one pub called the Half Nelson. And it's run by a wrestling family, and back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, they were known as the Panthers, and they were hugely popular wrestlers on World of Sport. If anybody remembers that, anybody my age will remember World of Sport, and they do a great thing at the beginning of this movie where they harper back to the good old days of British Saturday TV World of Sport, where British wrestling was hugely popular. Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, all that sort of thing. And the first 5 minutes, the introduction and all that, really got me excited. So it focused on this family, Panthers, all these wrestlers who are all now retired since British wrestling went off the telly and lost its popularity. In actual fact, if you understand and know wrestling in this country right now is the most popular it's ever been for a long, long time. Even the WWE has its own WWE title, UK Championship now, and it's got ties with the UK wrestling scene. So British wrestling is at its strongest peak right now than it has been for a long time, even though you might not see it on British screens. I'm sure you will at some point though, because I think World of Sport is coming back. So this pub, the Half Nelson, becomes under threat. Basically, the brewery's going to close it. This promoter then gets the Panthers to get back together to set up this huge show of all this old style wrestling, get the community going, get some fundraising going to save the Half Nelson pub. And that's basically the movie. In a nutshell, it's all these elderly, aged wrestlers trying to get back in shape so that they could put on a show for the community and make some cash to save the pub. Now, I remember seeing a trailer for this a few months ago, and I thought it looked pretty good. I mean, I'm a closet wrestling fan. I don't watch it as much now as I used to years ago. I'm more of an Attitude Era fan when it comes to wrestling, but I do watch it quite a bit because my son really loves wrestling, so we watch it together, bits and pieces. So I was quite looking forward to this. I've got to say, guys, I was a bit bitterly disappointed with this movie. I really was. It was a bit naff. It wasn't particularly funny. It was the British humour. It tried too hard. I mean, I'm a fan of British humour, obviously, and it just tried too hard. It wasn't funny. The gags weren't funny. They were cliched characters. And then when it got to the nitty gritty of the wrestling part, now again, it made the audience members. It pretended you were thick, and we all know wrestling is staged. It's theatre, it's entertainment. That's why World Wrestling now, WWE is called World Wrestling Entertainment. It's an entertainment industry, and this film presents it as something other than that, and it dumbs down your audience basically. So I didn't like that. When it actually got to the nitty gritty of the wrestling, it was awful. The wrestling they were doing, it was awful. I can't tell you how awful it was. I didn't expect it to be brilliant because it's a comedy at the end of the day and they're all elderly, but some of the matches, they were lasting 2 or 3 seconds, and they were shocking. Really bad. There were some amusing moments in it. but there were too few and far between in my eyes for this film. And I did find myself cringing more than once watching it, because the gags just didn't hit with me, guys. You might watch it, it might blow your mind, you might think it's that funny. The gags either just went over my, well, they didn't go over my head because they weren't intelligent gags, guys. They were stupid gags, the ones they were trying. And like I say, when I could have forgiven a lot when it actually got to the bit where they were doing the wrestling, if that had delivered. But it was beyond bad, the wrestling that they gave us in this movie. A wrestling movie. Imagine watching Rocky, and then it got to the boxing match at the end, and it was awful, filmed awful, looked awful, about as just not convincing. And that's what we get with this movie, unfortunately. It's a adequate comedy with awful wrestling at the end of it, and it's supposed to be a wrestling comedy. So for me, guys, it's a 5.5 out of 10. It's not really shockingly bad, but criminally it's a comedy that's just not funny, and a wrestling comedy with terrible wrestling. So from my perspective, guys, it's not a good movie, this, so I would give it a miss.